Great. So before we start tonight, we did want to start out with a quick demographic survey, mainly just to kind of gauge who we're engaging throughout this process so that we can really compare it with the demographics of the community and identify gaps so that we're able to adapt our engagement efforts in the future. So your name will not be specifically tied to responses, and will obviously be kept in private, and it'll just only be shared in aggregate so we know who we're engaging with here. So we'll go ahead and launch the demographics poll right now. Okay, I'll just give it one more minute. It is fairly little long. Okay, thank you everybody for doing that. All right, next slide, please. So for today, we'll just have a quick introduction, some overview of what we're talking about when we say focus topics. And we'll really just kind of spend a little bit of time, 15 minutes, talking about the background of what we're talking about when we mean affordable housing and wealth building. So things what we've heard from the community, some data points that really dives into the key issues and opportunities for this topic. And then for majority of the night, we will go ahead and break down to small groups where you'll get to really talk with your neighbors about this particular focus topic. And then we'll come back out as a larger group to report out and just talk with one another about what was discussed in the small groups. And for the last 5 minutes, we'll just cover the future engagement opportunities for this current phase of the process. So just some Zoom etiquette rules, I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with. Within the small groups, particularly, if you could turn on your video if possible, and then to just make sure you're muted when you're not speaking to limit some background noise. And then just use the chat function if you have any questions throughout the presentation, and we could get to that. And just another reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on our website. Great, so this is the timeline of the project. So really NPI, the Neighborhood Planning Initiative and the Northwest Area Plan is really an opportunity for residents to step back and think about the long-term vision of 20 years of where do we want to be as a community. So one, it really aims to establish a shared vision with the community. And two, it helps create actionable items coming out of the plan to make sure that the vision is realized in the future. So today in phase one, we talked a lot about the area and listening about the issues, the likes, dislikes, and the opportunities people see in the neighborhood. In this current phase of the process, we're really diving into the key issues that have risen from all the public comments that we've received and the community engagement processes that we've completed as part of phase one. So really tonight is to dive into those issues that we've heard is a huge concern and a priority for the community, and also to start thinking about how we can develop some initial recommendations to address them. So we have a lot of background information on our website from some existing condition analysis that we did that's really data driven, that tells the story about what your neighborhood is today and how it has evolved over time, and also some engagement summary. So again, we did a lot of community engagement as part of phase one of just really listening to community, and that phase one community engagement summary is really about what we've heard and sharing and reporting back out to the community about what we've heard. So in addition, we'll also have an online survey and a short video that highlights the key findings of what we're calling the issues and opportunity summary. So that's really the report that's helping frame the conversation for this current phase. So we'll have a short video that will explain the findings of that report. So I will turn it over to Brad. I actually forgot to mention in the introduction, I am joined here by our consultant team, Puma, and some of our sub-consultants. So I will let them introduce themselves.
Great, thanks, Song, and welcome everybody. We do anticipate some more folks probably joining us. We had about 24 members of the public that responded that they would join us this evening. But we will go ahead and reward all of us who showed up on time, and we'll give you some background information, and then we'll break into discussion groups on this issue of affordable housing. Also, with the small number of folks on the screen, at some peril here, I would like to go around the screen and just learn who everybody is, just learn who you are and what neighborhood, if you're a neighborhood resident or business owner, what neighborhood you're in. Also, Councilwoman Sandoval is with us tonight. And Councilwoman, I don't necessarily want to put you on the spot, but I'm curious if you would be willing to welcome folks this evening as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And for those who don't have your camera on, I understand 5:30 is hard. It's dinner time. So I used to call it at my house the witching hour because everyone was hungry. And so thank you all for joining us. And as the representative for this neighborhood, I'm born and raised in this neighborhood, currently raising my family in this neighborhood. This topic of affordability is at the forefront of everything we do in my office because gentrification not only is happening, it already has in some areas in the four boundaries of this area of this project. So I look forward to hearing from all of you and learning where you're from and where you live and a little bit about who we're on the call with tonight. Thanks, Brad.
Great, thank you. So let's go around the screen. I'll call out folks' names because in Zoom, everybody's screen is a little different. I'm Brad Siegel. I'm the president founder of a small firm called Puma. We are consultants that are working with the city and the councilwoman's office on the Northwest neighborhood plans. So when we go around the screen, tell us who you are and what your connection is tonight. And if you are a neighborhood resident, which neighborhood you're in. Let's start with Ryan Anderson.
Hi, I'm Ryan Anderson, and I'm with Puma.
Great, thanks. Arlene, you're next.
Arlene Taniwaki with Arlen Land Use Economics, but working closely with Puma on this project.
Great. Sung, we met with the City of Denver. Anything you want to add, Sung, to your intro?
No, just the project manager on the city side for this project, and just thank you everyone for being here.
Great. I noticed too, as we go around the screen, we're getting more folks coming in. So it's a very deft delay tactic to get everybody here. So Ben Kelly, you're next.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. My name is Ben Kelly, and I'm a sub-consultant with Puma on the Near Northwest Plan. So thanks, Brad.
Andy Cohen, you're next.
And unmuted. Hello, Andy Cohen. I am a Jefferson Park resident, and man, I feel like I missed out that there's some other meetings that have happened, but happy to be here for this installment.
No worries, Andy. We'll get you in the flow of the project. Plenty of meetings to come. Gina, you're next.
Hi, everyone. Gina Volpe. I work for Councilman Sandoval and born and raised in the north side, but I'm on the west side of Federal, so not my planning area as a resident, but as representing Councilwoman Sandoval's office.
Great, thank you. Edson, you're next.
Hey everyone, my name is Edson Ibanez. I am with CPD. I'm working with Sung on this project, so thanks.
Andrew Johnston.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Johnston. I work in the Department of Housing Stability and here to lend some support and background information for anything regarding affordable housing.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Mark Knowles, you're next.
Yeah, my name is Mark Knowles, and I have lived in the area for just over a year, and I live in the Potter Highlands.
Okay, great. Pete Tavani.
Hello, my name is Pete Tavani. I'm General Manager of RJS CJS. We own the property at the end of Jason and 47th, and it's going to be a key piece to connecting the neighborhoods, and that's what I'm working on. John Gagnon and I are working on net zero communities to get people's opinion about it and what we can fit in there and what people like, don't like, that sort of thing.
Great, thank you. Elizabeth Morales, you're next.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I am a Sunnyside resident as well as a new City of Denver employee. I do work on a grant program that advocates for safer walking and biking and rolling in the Northwest Denver area. So here to contribute as a community member and to listen to all of you and learn a little bit as well.
Great, thanks. Naomi Grunditz and friend.
Hi, my earbuds are in. I don't know, the sound might be kind of weird coming from me, but this is Blue. He decided to make an appearance. He has lots of opinions about affordable housing. I am another one of the aides for Councilman Sandoval. Really nice to meet y'all. Thanks for coming out.
Benjamin Fuller, eating dinner, so you don't need to turn on your screen, but tell us who you are, what neighborhood you live in.
Howdy, I'm Ben. I'm from Jefferson Park. I'm just excited to hear about what's happening in my neighborhood.
Great, thank you. Corinne Roberts.
Hi, I'm Corinne Roberts. I grew up in the North Side or Highlands neighborhood. I've lived here 37 years and just really invested in the way the neighborhood used to be and how much gentrification and change and how unaffordable things are now. So this is, I think, a very important topic. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, great. For those who recently joined us, we are going around the screen, just getting quick introductions from folks in terms of who they are, what neighborhood they may live in. From the chat, I saw Christine. I don't believe you have sound, but do communicate with us in the chat. Trupti, you're next.
Hi, this is Tripti. I am actually in Sunnyside as well and with the RNO, and I'm also on the steering committee meeting for Near Northwest, and I'm just participating so I can hear what others are saying. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And then last is Joan Engler. Joan Engler. All right, we'll catch up with Joan later. Let's get the slides back up. We'll catch up on some time here and give you all some background. Tonight, we do want to talk about affordable housing and wealth building in the Northwest neighborhoods, arguably the #1 issue of concern citywide and certainly in your neighborhoods as well. So next slide. This is one of a series of meetings related to what we call focus topics. The focus topics are related to the Northwest plan because they are topic-based. We are having discussions in small groups. There's several opportunities to get involved in these through the type of roundtable we're in tonight. There'll also be some neighborhood workshops coming up in person, which is exciting, in April and May. We'll have more information on that at the end of the presentation. And the opportunity tonight is really to maximize our time to discuss issues, develop ideas and strategies that make sense for your neighborhoods on this issue. Next slide, please. So tonight's topics, affordable housing and wealth building. The key questions here on affordable housing. What policies and programs can be implemented to keep existing renters and owners in the neighborhood? Arlene's going to run us through some data here in a minute, and there has been a tremendous amount of change in your neighborhoods over the last 20 years and real concern over issues of displacement and gentrification and just the way these neighborhoods are changing. So a real emphasis tonight we'll talk about affordable housing in multiple dimensions, but how can we keep the affordable housing we have and make sure that folks who want to stay in the neighborhoods have the ability to do that? And then related to that is the whole topic of community wealth building. What resources can be provided to help residents access wealth building tools and have ownership interests in the future of their neighborhoods? Next slide, please. The last slide for me, and then I'll hand it over to Arlene, is just to recap what we've heard on this issue. This process, as Song mentioned, we are probably a quarter of the way through the process. And in the first phase of the process, we heard this issue a lot in terms of concerns over affordable housing. So from all the 4 neighborhoods, what folks do like about the neighborhoods are the density of housing, your proximity to transit and downtown, diversity of ownership, diversity of housing types, diversity in all dimensions, and also the rich Chicano and Italian history and legacies of the neighborhoods as well. What folks don't like is again, the change, the gentrification, older affordable housing being lost, property taxes rising, putting stress on many existing households, and new apartments, the new housing that's coming up, and you'll see this demonstrated by the data in a minute. Lots of new development, but it's all pretty high priced. So it's not really addressing this affordable housing challenge. And then we heard a number of ideas, and we want to build on these ideas tonight. So accessory dwelling units, where you can build a second unit on your existing lot or attached to your home. Affordable housing throughout the neighborhoods, more options and housing types, and maintaining the existing affordable housing that we have. So Arlene, I'm going to hand it to you. You're going to provide some highlights of data that illustrates the changes in these neighborhoods.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, these are data highlights. And if you want more information, Sung mentioned some background. A lot of background work has been done already, and you can find a lot of this information, particularly in our issues and opportunities report. So if you want more, you can look there. But these 2 charts here, and you're not going to be surprised by any of this, but it just illustrates the high housing costs, in these neighborhoods since 2000 and the change that's happened. And so on the left, it shows the median home value change between 2000 and 2019. You see that pretty dramatic increase between 2010 and 2019, particularly in the Highland neighborhood. And then on the right, it shows you the median rent change. Same time period, all this information is from the census, but we're seeing some pretty dramatic increases in rents as well, just, really across the board. Next slide. And so, as you know, there's been substantial new development that's shown in the map on the right, all those dark spots there. But, despite all of this, there's been a real loss of affordability. And I think what you've seen happening is smaller, older, more affordable homes get scraped, and what gets replaced is sort of newer. Oftentimes they're multi-unit, they're much larger typically, and they're typically much higher end and much more expensive. Next slide. And so, so density has increased, so there's more units, but there are fewer people in them. So we've actually seen a decrease in population in these neighborhoods since 2000. So in 2000, the average household size was about 2.9 persons per household. Now it's about 2.1. So it's decreased by quite a bit. And what we've seen happen is that families and Latinos have moved out during that period of time. Next slide. And so, this is one of the more sort of shocking demographic indicators that we came across, but there's a real issue about the displacement of the Latinx population and the loss of culture that goes along with that. So that chart on the left, the red bars show the Hispanic Latinx population as a percentage of the population in each of these neighborhoods in 2000. And so you can see in 2000 in red, the percentage of the population was anywhere from 65% to over 80% of that respective neighborhood. In 2019, that has dropped pretty significantly, and now it ranges from 25% in Highland to 50% in Chaffee Park. The map on the right shows that this area, particularly Sunnyside and Chaffee Park, it continues to be vulnerable to displacement. And so some of those related issues are what we're going to discuss tonight. Next slide. And so this also ties back to history. And so there's a couple of things on this map, and this is actually a clip from a much larger city of Denver map. But equity is related to health equity. And so it's a map created by the Department of Public Health. Essentially what it does, it maps the entire city and looks at various indicators related to access to food, access to medical care, childhood obesity, mortality rates, just across the board. And essentially the darker pink, the solid darker pink shows areas of higher inequity overall. And so you see that Sunnyside in particular is challenged from this point of view. And then that's sort of crosshatched with neighborhoods that have been historically redlined. And so you also see that there's a real relationship between neighborhoods, and essentially redline neighborhoods where those were in the past, banks, would not make home loans to potential homeowners. And so this led to real discrimination against households of color and, other folks that just didn't have that access to capital overall. So you see that there's a relationship between the two, and that continues to this day. Next slide, and I think I'm turning it over to Ben at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Arlene. I've got a couple slides here, folks, just to give a very broad stroke overview of a couple affordable housing initiatives that are in place or nearly in place that will inform the affordable housing strategies in the Near Northwest Plan. The first of which is a 5-year strategic plan from the city regarding affordable housing. And that covers everything from strategies to reduce and limit the impacts of homelessness, to strategies to limit the threat of eviction and how to protect people from eviction, all the way through homeownership and increasing levels of homeownership, especially among people of color and low and moderate income households throughout the city. So that plan was adopted just last November, and it's a very useful tool that will inform the housing strategies in the Near Northwest Plan. The second big piece is an affordable housing fund that was created in 2016 that is funded through property tax citywide and through development fees. So when something gets built, fees are assessed, and that fee goes into this affordable housing fund. And the principles around really the plan and the affordable housing fund are just to support connecting people that are at risk of displacement with housing resources, which is as we've talked already tonight, a big theme in the neighborhoods that we're focusing on right now. Helping people that are in crisis or are in positions where they are homeless, they are unhoused, with shelter services and short-term and permanent housing, creating and preserving the affordable housing that we have, but creating more units throughout the city, and also connecting residents throughout the income continuum with housing opportunities in the city. So really just comprehensive strategies that will kind of underpin and influence the affordable housing strategies in the Near Northwest Plan. Next slide, please. And the big initiative that's underway right now that is probably headed to council later this spring is the Expanding Housing Affordability Initiative. And the principle behind that is to require affordable units where we see development happening. And the three main parts of this policy are requiring affordable units in new residential projects of 10 units or greater. So if there's a rental or for sale project that has 10 or more units, they have to include affordable units in that project. This policy also will increase what's called the linkage fee which is a development fee that is assessed. I just mentioned it. It's kind of the building block of the Affordable Housing Fund, but commercial and residential developments are assessed a fee. And this policy that's about to head to council will increase this fee to generate more funds for affordable housing. And the third piece is to provide incentives to sort of not totally offset, but to address the cost of including more affordable units in projects that fall under the purview of the inclusionary housing ordinance in the affordability initiative. So that's not the full toolbox of affordable housing policies in the city that the city has, but those are some highlights just to use as a primer as we head into discussion.
Ben, there was a question in the chat from Ben, from other Ben, about linkage fee. What exactly is a link? Why is it called a linkage fee? Was his question.
Linkage fee kind of links to use the verb, the product of the development, and generate something out of that development in a monetary way, whether it's a per square foot assessment on a commercial project, or it's a per unit assessment on a residential project, or sometimes a square footage assessment on a residential project. And that links the development with some other purpose, in this case, generating funds for the Affordable Housing Fund. I will defer to Andrew Johnston from the city's host department if he wants to elaborate on that. A great question, Ben.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to describe it is that the new development that is happening within our city creates a need for affordable housing. And it's our goal and aspirations to make sure we're incorporating affordable housing. So if a project isn't going to actually build or incorporate units into their project, then they are the fee is linked to their development and the need for affordable housing. And that's why we use the word link. That's the best way I can come to describe it.
Great question, Ben.
Great. There was also a second, we'll take the second question, then we're going to split into groups here in a moment. There was a second question from Christine. Are there strategies in the 5-year plan? Andrew, this is going to be another question for you. Are there strategies in the 5-year plan to reduce the wipe-offs or scrapes of smaller homes, which are then replaced by very expensive, larger homes?
I do not believe there's a specific strategy in there for that, other than having encouraging denser development, which doesn't really get to what you're looking for. And so I'll just answer with a quick no.
Okay, great. But certainly something we can talk about tonight,
yes.
Christine. All right, so we're going to run through some ideas for discussion. And Song, I sent you a message. Are you the one who's putting? Yes. Okay, great. So we were going to do 3 groups, but half of the folks on the screen are either from the consultant team of the city or the council office, and we really want to hear from the residents. So we're just going to do 2 groups tonight, which will allow us to get more resident voice as we go through our discussion tonight. But we really, again, want to go into these questions about how do we preserve, how do we get new affordable housing in our neighborhoods, and how do we build wealth? Next slide, please. So just to get everybody's sort of brain going, because there's a lot here. There's a lot in affordable housing. It can get very complex. But we just wanted to throw out some ideas that are being considered, that are being considered in addition to those city policies and programs that Ben talked about and Andrew was answering questions about. So on housing availability, here's 4 different ideas, and we're actually going to poll you guys. So pay attention. This is homework. We're going to poll you in a minute in terms of which ones do you think would make sense in your neighborhood. So remember, the neighborhood plan is a policy document. It guides city planning. It also guides elected officials for policies over the next 20 years. So one policy idea is what's called a no net loss policy. And what that means is that there not be a decrease in the number of affordable housing units in your neighborhood over time. So if there's new development, or if some affordable units are lost, through development, that there's a policy that the goal is to make sure that those are replaced. That's what that means. Rent subsidies, which is helping renters through vouchers or other means to keep up with increasing rents. And then the other side of that is landlords, incentivizing landlords through some sort of direct subsidy to limit how they increase rent. And then this last one, a prioritization policy. This is something that the housing division of the city is now considering, where formerly displaced residents or those at risk of displacement in your neighborhood are given priority to any new affordable housing that's created. So the idea there is really to, if we're going to build or if we're going to preserve affordable housing, that we make sure existing residents or past residents benefit from that the most. So that's a very high level overview of just some ideas. Again, in the groups, we'll be talking about those. Do we have the poll? Can we put the first poll up, please? So we're curious, just with the dozen or so folks on the screen, which of these resonate with you? Pick two. Pick two. Having and thinking about your neighborhood, thinking about this neighborhood plan, this 20-year policy document. Do we want the no net loss policy, which is this long-term goal to preserve the affordable housing? Should we consider rent subsidies to renters? Should we consider subsidies to landlords? Or this prioritization policy that any affordable housing that comes online, we give preference to folks who are at risk of displacement or have been displaced? Or none of these, none of these really resonate. That's a fair response too. So let's give you about 20 seconds. We don't want you to overthink it. And pick two boxes that resonate and that you think might best fit your neighborhood. And who's tracking the polling tonight? Is it Sung or is it Ryan?
It's me.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll close it in a few seconds.
Excellent. What we love about the polls is then we'll have immediate gratification of results. So all right, can everybody see that on their screen? The results? Looks like it. Interesting. So this group is evenly split. You like basically all these ideas, maybe to a lesser extent the incentives for landlords, but this policy of making sure we don't lose affordable units makes sense. Rent subsidies can make sense, and the prioritization policy makes sense to folks too. All right, let's move on. So the next slide, and then, so again, in our discussion, we're going to talk about affordable housing options. We're also going to talk about the notion of wealth building. How can we help folks stay in these neighborhoods and also benefit from some of the appreciation and other improvements in the neighborhood over time? So here's 4 more ideas, and we're going to ask you to vote on these again. Do these fit in your neighborhood? So community land trust is one idea. This is being used elsewhere in Denver right now. So a community-based nonprofit owns land, buys land, and then low and moderate income households own or rent homes that are on top of that land. But it ensures that the land is held in perpetuity for affordable housing. So that's a community land trust. Accessory dwelling units, which are currently allowed through most of your neighborhoods right now. We were thinking last night when we were discussing this that maybe 3/4 of your neighborhoods already allow accessory dwelling units, where you can have a second home or a second unit on your lot. That can be over a garage, that can be adjacent. And I think what we're voting on tonight is just making it easier to do these. You already have most of you have the zoning authority to do it, but they can be expensive. So are there ways we can underwrite costs to make these things happen? The third one on here, home rehab and renovation tools. There are some programs in the city. Interestingly, at Dura, Denver Urban Renewal has a very strong program to help people subsidize home rehabilitation and renovation. Is that a good idea? And then lastly, here's another one that's percolating over in the housing division is down payment assistance for homes, again, to that group that's either in threat of displacement or folks who have been involuntarily displaced from their neighborhood. So again, these 4 ideas, we just want to get a sense of it, and we can discuss these more in the groups. But let's go ahead and launch the poll if we could, Sung. And again, you got 2, vote for 2, community land trust, where a nonprofit owns the land, accessory dwelling units, finding ways to make these easier, less expensive to build, home rehab and renovation tools for existing homeowners, or this new down payment assistance program that's being considered for folks who are at risk for displacement. Give you another 15, 20 seconds. Pick 2, don't overthink it. Oh, we got more decisive mandate on this one. So hopefully everyone can see the results on their screen. Community land trusts, the winner here, decisively, 88% of the responses here supporting community land trusts. And then after that is that down payment assistance program that is being considered at the housing department. 38% said that. Accessory dwelling units, home rehab tools, both 25%. So pretty interesting on the community land trust. We can go ahead and close that. We're going to go ahead and here in a moment, we're going to go into 2 groups. Is that correct, Sung?
Yes, 2 groups.
Yes. So we're going to send people into 2 groups. We really want to hear tonight from our resident participants. And we'll talk about all these ideas and more. And we've got some questions for you in those breakouts. We'll take about 30 minutes. I'm being mindful of the clock tonight. We did guarantee 7 o'clock for you all. So we'll take about 30 minutes in these 2 groups, and then we'll come back and we'll share some highlights. And see, I am confident we're going to come up with some good ideas tonight. So
yeah, I guess no one else clicked the button. I didn't realize it gave a 120-second timer. I would have used that
it does, yeah.
function, but okay. So I guess we get people in though. It's like they're still going. Do we have everybody?
we lost a few. the councilwoman and Gina had another appointment.
Okay.
Naomi, I think, is left here to hold the banner of CD1, but
Yes,
we lost
I'm here.
those 2.
Okay. Okay, I think we're all here. Yeah, so Brad, if you want to, if your group wants to go first for a report out, and then we'll do the second group and wrap it all up.
Sure. So group 1, I'll do a quick summary, and then if y'all have stuff to add, please do. So our group included Andy and Mark, Joan, who got her sound working, which was great, and Christine, who sent us a bunch of ideas through chat, which was great too. And Pete was there for a bit. So can you put up our wisdom, our Google Doc, so we can see it?
Yeah, let me, does someone else have it open or available? I have like 50 windows and I was, there, thank you.
Edson to the rescue here. So I'll give you a quick overview, and then group 1, if y'all have anything to add, please do. You know, what stood out on the data, it's the fact there's all this new development, yet, you know, we're losing population because of small households. And then, of course, the change in the Latinx population. What are you hearing about from your neighbors? Well, you know, neighbors are concerned about it. It's a hot issue in Denver, hot issue in these areas too. What happens if we don't address this? Well, our neighborhoods, continue to lose diversity. Also, if we don't address affordability as the whole city, it's going to increase the homeless population. People just can't afford to live in the city. So a lot of sort of negative impacts if we don't do anything. Had a bunch of great ideas, had a bunch of good discussions on what sort of policies and programs could be implemented. Andy brought us an idea from Europe about just taxing land and not taxing improvements, and how that could actually really help level the playing field in all of this. Joan talked about just better amenities, for those who live there, and make sure we've got amenities for the type of households that we're losing, for families and others. We talked about also some of the programs to help people in their existing homes. So whether they're from Dura or Habitat for Humanity, those types of initiatives. And then lastly, we veered into wealth building, spent a lot of time there. Home ownership, we got to find ways to help people find, own homes and affordable homes as well. Concern in this inflationary environment that down payment assistance may not be enough. We may need to be worrying about interest rates now, which are going to make things more unaffordable. Acknowledging that transportation is the second largest expense in our households. So to the extent that we can address transportation, give people the options other than cars, that actually would help. Talked a lot about education on how to buy a home, again, from Joan. Just a lot of first-time homeowners don't necessarily know what they're getting into, and can we be more ambitious in terms of educating folks. ADU, a real sort of problem with the ADU notion, accessory dwelling unit, is we apparently are allowing short-term rentals in these things, and that's not the intention. So is there a way to limit that? Naomi, I saw you popped in there. Are there limits on short-term rentals in ADUs or no? I'm curious.
The only limitation, so no, you can short-term rent your ADU if, again, that piece of property is your primary residence. Interestingly, however, you cannot live in your ADU and rent out your main house. So your main house is considered the primary use because the ADU is accessory. And if your primary use is a rental, that's technically violating the idea of a single unit zone where your primary use should be residential. It's a hotel use, basically.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
All
right. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. We appreciate it. So those are the highlights from Group 1. I mean, any Group 1 members care to add or add some seasoning to that? Andy's good. Mark, you're good. Mark got pretty spirited there on the home ownership.
I did?
Yeah, you did. If we ever need a rally or a protest.
I agree. Yeah, we definitely need to fight.
Okay, good. And then Christine and John, thanks everyone for chiming in. That's it.
Awesome. And then we have Ben and Ryan.
Muted. I'll briefly run through this. I mean, I think the takeaways from the data is also just, the impact of decades of transformation in these neighborhoods, and its tie to gentrification really just kind of comes through, and it's something that people are living through, and in some cases have experienced over many decades in our group. So very visceral response to that. And what are we hearing from neighbors? I mean, it's a low level, like it's intense, but the level of engagement, that's just because it's intense and something everybody is concerned about, is not always translating to engagement in a process like this. And I think that's sort of a refrain or a theme that is true of all community and city processes. How do we translate that concern and interest into engagement? But there's also, I think, a couple comments about the resulting impacts of these changes on property taxes and what it means to losing a sense of community in these neighborhoods. The more things change, in some ways, it's harder to get people engaged in sort of channeling those changes and applying the policies that we're working towards so that the change that is still to come generates the most benefits for these neighborhoods, and applying the agencies and the resources and the tools and the funds so that the change that's still to come results in community benefits that are good for the near Northwest. In terms of the policies and the programs, we had a little healthy skepticism about the incentives that go to the landlord side, the property owner side, compared to the incentives and vouchers that go to people who are renting housing. So that needs to be ironed out and really thought through. Also, a little healthy skepticism about linkage fees, because it's maybe not of significant impact to the development side. And there's a concept that we talk through about just the importance of whatever policies and programs can be emphasized that result in a diversity of housing, both price points at rental and home ownership, and at different stages of people's lives. So I think there's a good discussion about the importance of that sort of continuum of housing types, prices, availability, and location, so that these neighborhoods, people can kind of live through the phases of their lives, and was really important takeaway for our group. And other resources to kind of help our neighborhood, our neighbors stay in these neighborhoods. I think one of the takeaways is, we have to be really sensitive about things like property taxes and impacts of investment in these neighborhoods, and do things like community land trusts. Is that a tool that really kind of changes those dynamics? So those are the kind of the main things that I'll pull out. But Trupti, Corrine, Pete, Elizabeth, anything else to sort of layer on to that you really want us to highlight?
I really, with the property tax, my focus on that was especially elderly who live in our neighborhood. So how to protect them and allow them to continue living in the houses they worked so hard to build. So focusing on our elderly and our elders.
Can I go?
Oh, Pete.
I was just going to say we need to help people by giving them a hand up, not a handout, and that's basically all. I just want to add to that.
Great. Anybody else from that group? Okay, great. Well, I will go ahead and wrap it up and just thank you all again for attending tonight. We really did value your time and all the feedback that you guys provided, especially for those that attended multiple roundtables. We just thank you guys so much for your time spent with us during this evening. I do just want to highlight some future events that we will have. So really these topic roundtable discussions were just part one. And part two of this phase 2 outreach, what we're going to lead into in late April and in May, is to talk more specifically about your neighborhoods. So no neighborhood is the same, and that's very true for near Northwest, and we understand that. So we will have similar virtual roundtable discussions like this, but also an in-person workshop where people can drop in at their own time and pace, and just to be able to directly talk with staff, and to be able to just roll up your sleeves and draw on some maps and to be able to figure out these issues together. So those will happen again in late April into early May. So feel free, just be on the lookout for that and mark it on your calendars, invite your neighbors, and that will be a good time. Do you guys see that by chance? Yeah. Awesome.
This is Joni. I have a question. I live in Chaffee Park, and it looks like the drop-in.
No, I've never been here this late.
Sorry.
I know that they have an auto off, which is why they're off now, but.
Hello?
Okay, all right, I got it. I had to be somebody. Yep.
This is Joni, and I live in Chaffee Park, and I was just looking at the drop-in for workshops. And the one for Chaffee Park is on April 23rd from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And this is mainly a working class neighborhood. So how would people be able to drop in for a workshop during those hours? Would we be able to maybe go to another workshop in another neighborhood? I mean,
I believe because of those reasons, I think April 23rd lands on a Saturday.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the thought behind it.
In the middle of the day on a Saturday.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, the schools just weren't
There's never a
available
good
in
time.
Chaffee in the evenings, and there's no other real community center in Chaffee Park.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's something
No.
we worked on. Not what we point to as an excuse for why we can't do better.
So yeah, we'll definitely be mindful of that in the future about timing and just being proactive about it. But yeah, there were some constraints to work with. So appreciate it.
Hey, Sung, one thing I'd like to understand on this call, how many people are actually residents, non-staff, the number of people, because this is something I'm actually very concerned about. So how many people on this call are non-city staff? And I don't have everybody's name in front of me. Sung, you may know right away who isn't and who is. How many people are non-staff, are actual residents and participants?
So I think in total, if folks might have dropped off, but when I was seeing in the room, total in the room count, each room about had 4 or 5. So in total 8 to 9.
Okay, thank you. And
Trupti, hold on. There were about 25 RSVPs, which we should mention too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
a lot of folks.
I get that. So we have 4 or 5 within 4 neighborhoods for this particular round table. And in those 4 neighborhoods, I'm assuming it's at least, I'm going to assume every neighborhood is as big as mine or less, 4,500, 5,000. So 20,000 households. And we've got 4 or 5 people on this call. And I want everybody to think about that because this is a problem.
Right. I mean, again, these were intended to be smaller group discussions and formats, and not to say that we don't want more people to show up. But again, this is one of many meetings to come, and we're expecting a bigger turnout in attendance for the neighborhood workshops. And again, we're continuing to adapt. The reason why we collect the demographic information that we do, keep the attendance so that we understand where we need to change our engagement plans to just do a better job. So understand the attendance was lower tonight than we all wanted. But I think we'll get a higher turnout in the workshops. And if we don't, then we'll just need to continually adapt and try to do a better job. But all we can do is yeah.
I'd like to understand what that's going to look like. What level of engagement says it was good enough? And if not, what level of engagement do we need? And I know we're paying Puma and consultants a lot of money for the engagement aspect. I'm sure project management, other stuff, there's, we have a shortage of staff, everything else. But I'd really like to understand how much money we spend on engagement and what value that actually had. I mean, an easy metric is how many individual people, and what's the cost of that person showing up. I think that's something you guys can provide. And I think it's important for the neighborhood, the city, and everybody else to understand what value and what cost engagement, result in. And so I'd love to see more data like that included in future meetings.
Thank you for that. if we don't have any other thoughts or questions, I will close the meeting today and just thank you everyone for attending. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye. It's Tony.